Judith of Flanders, the princess who redefined medieval power. Born around 843 into the powerful Carolingian dynasty, Judith of Flanders was the daughter of King Charles the Bald and Queen Ermentrude. From birth, she was a royal pawn in a world where noble women were often used solely for political alliances. But Judith's life would defy convention in remarkable ways. Not only was she crowned and anointed queen, an extraordinary honor for a woman in Anglo-Saxon England, but she also took control of her own destiny by choosing her third husband, a bold move almost unheard of in her time. Raised in the royal Frankish court, Judith received an education that far surpassed what most women, even noble ones, could hope for. She was likely fluent in Latin, trained in theology, music, and court diplomacy, skills that prepared her for high political life. This background distinguished her when she was married off at the age of 12 to King Ethelwulf of Wessex, a much older ruler in his 50s. The marriage was politically strategic, strengthening ties between Francia and Wessex against Viking threats. But it was her coronation, insisted upon by Ethelwulf, that shocked the English court. Queens in England were not typically crowned or anointed, and Judith's elevation to queenly status was met with suspicion and fear by the nobility. When Ethelwulf died just a year later, Judith was a young widow, barely a teenager. Instead of retiring to a convent as was customary, she made the audacious decision to marry Ethelwulf's son and her stepson, King Ethelbald. This caused outrage, as it violated social and religious norms. Despite the scandal, Judith maintained her title as queen and appeared in royal documents, showing her continued importance. After Ethelbald's death, Judith returned to Francia, where her father placed her in a convent to limit her political influence. But Judith wasn't content with a cloistered life. She escaped and eloped with Baldwin Ironarm, a Flemish noble of lower rank. Their marriage, done without royal permission, enraged her father. Baldwin was declared a traitor, and Judith's brother was punished for helping them. The couple fled across Europe, eventually appealing to Pope Nicholas I in Rome. The Pope upheld their marriage, forcing King Charles to accept Baldwin as a son-in-law. Judith's actions not only cemented her place in history as a woman who defied the norms of her era, but they also laid the foundation for the House of Flanders, a dynasty that would rise to great prominence. Through intelligence, courage, and strategic vision, Judith of Flanders transformed herself from a royal pawn into a queenmaker and political force. Her legacy lived on through her descendants, who would shape the future of England and Europe for centuries. Judith of Flanders, a royal woman ahead of her time. Judith of Flanders, born around 843 to King Charles the Bald and Queen Ermentrude, stood out not only because of her royal lineage, but because of her extraordinary intellect and agency in an age when few women, especially royal women, had a voice in political affairs. Raised in the influential Carolingian court, Judith received an elite education. Unlike most women of the 9th century, she was literate in Latin, the language of scholarship, law, and the church. She was also trained in diplomacy, courtly manners, and Christian theology. These qualities set her apart in a world dominated by men and made her particularly exceptional when she later became queen in Anglo-Saxon England, a place where women rarely held such authority. Her life took a dramatic turn when, at the age of about 12, she was married to King Ethelwulf of Wessex. Although such marriages were common for forging alliances between kingdoms, Judith's wedding came with an unusual twist. Ethelwulf had her anointed and crowned as queen, a rare honor in Anglo-Saxon tradition. English queens were typically not given such ceremonial recognition, and this act marked Judith as someone unique and influential. Her position caused unease among the English nobility, who feared she might wield too much power, especially as a foreign-born queen. When Ethelwulf died only a year into their marriage, Judith made yet another shocking decision. She married his son and her stepson, Ethelbald. While such a union was deeply controversial and considered incestuous by church standards, it may have been a strategic move to retain her status as queen and maintain political stability. This bold act demonstrated her willingness to challenge social and religious norms. After Ethelbald's death, Judith returned to Francia. Her father, displeased by the scandal surrounding her, placed her in a convent to neutralize her influence. But Judith was not the type to quietly disappear. She eventually eloped with Baldwin Ironarm, a nobleman far beneath her in status. Their unauthorized marriage caused outrage, but Judith stood firm. With Baldwin, she sought papal approval, and when the Pope endorsed their union, even her powerful father had to relent. Judith's life was one of resilience, intelligence, and political acumen. In a world that sought to control her at every step, she made bold choices, shaping dynasties and defying expectations. Her legacy would live on through the House of Flanders, which played a crucial role in European history for centuries to come. Judith of Flanders, a child bride who redefined queenship. At just 12 years old, Judith of Flanders found herself at the center of a political alliance that would not only change her life, but challenge long-standing traditions in Anglo-Saxon England. In 856, she was married to King Ethelwulf of Wessex, a man more than 4 decades her senior. He was around 55 at the time. While such age gaps were not uncommon in royal marriages, this particular union raised eyebrows, not just for the disparity in age, but for the unusual honors bestowed upon Judith. Most notably, Judith was not merely taken as a wife. She was crowned and anointed as queen in a formal church ceremony. This was a groundbreaking moment in English history. Unlike in Frankish or Carolingian territories, where queens were often consecrated, Anglo-Saxon England had no tradition of formally crowning queens. Typically, the wife of a king held little official power and was rarely even mentioned in royal records. Judith's coronation set her apart as a queen with legitimate status and potential influence at court. The ceremony was carried out with great pomp and religious significance, marking Judith not just as a consort, but as a sacred partner in rule. For many in Wessex, this act was deeply unsettling. Nobles feared that by elevating her position so dramatically, King Ethelwulf was introducing foreign customs that could disrupt the balance of power. Judith's high status, her Carolingian heritage, and her visible role in court created anxiety among the English aristocracy, who were unaccustomed to such a powerful female presence. Despite the political unrest, Judith fulfilled her ceremonial role with grace. However, her time as Queen of Wessex under Ethelwulf was brief. The king died just a year later, leaving Judith a young widow at only 13. What followed was even more shocking. She married Ethelwulf's son, and her own stepson Ethelbald. This controversial marriage caused an even greater stir, as it was considered incestuous by church law and deeply scandalous by contemporary standards. Yet Judith's bold actions revealed something rare for women of her era: agency. Whether motivated by survival, political savvy, or personal choice, Judith navigated a complex and male-dominated world with intelligence and determination. Her anointing as queen was not just symbolic. It foreshadowed a life of unconventional power, influence, and resilience. Through her, the role of queen in England began to evolve into something more than just a background figure. Judith was a queen in name, title, and impact. Judith of Flanders, a queen who defied expectations. After the death of King Ethelwulf in 858, Judith of Flanders once again stunned the Anglo-Saxon world with a bold and unprecedented move. Still only a teenager, barely 14 years old, Judith entered into a second marriage, this time with Ethelwulf's son, Ethelbald, who was also her own stepson. The union sent shockwaves through both church and court, igniting controversy and condemnation. According to the Christian laws and customs of the time, Judith's marriage to Ethelbald was considered improper, if not outright incestuous. The church strictly forbade unions between in-laws of such close relation, and the clergy publicly disapproved of the match. Contemporary chroniclers recorded the scandal with a mix of disbelief and moral outrage, reflecting the tension that this marriage brought to the English royal court. And yet, Judith's decision was far from irrational. By marrying Ethelbald, she maintained her position as queen, a title rarely preserved by widows in Anglo-Saxon England. Most royal widows would have been quietly retired to convents or sent back to their families, removed from political life. Judith, however, refused to disappear into obscurity. Her second marriage allowed her to remain at the heart of power, influencing courtly affairs and preserving her elevated status in a male-dominated society. The political motivations behind the marriage likely played a role as well. Ethelbald may have viewed Judith, daughter of the powerful Frankish King Charles the Bald, as a valuable political ally. Through her, he could maintain ties to the Carolingian Empire and bolster his legitimacy. For Judith, the marriage offered continuity, protection, and a rare degree of agency over her own future. Still, the union was short-lived. Ethelbald died just a few years later, around 860, leaving Judith a widow once more, this time with no children and no formal claim to power in England. But rather than remain in Wessex, Judith made the bold decision to return to the continent, setting the stage for the next chapter of her remarkable life. In defying both religious norms and social expectations, Judith carved out a unique place in history. Her actions challenged the limited roles available to royal women and hinted at the potential for queenship to be something more than ceremonial. Judith, it seemed, was never content to play a passive role. Judith of Flanders, a princess who chose her own fate. By the age of just 17, Judith of Flanders had already been crowned queen twice and widowed twice. After the death of her second husband, King Ethelbald of Wessex, she returned to her native Francia. In most cases, a woman in her position, twice widowed, still young, and childless, would have been quietly placed in a convent. It was the expected path for noble women who had outlived their usefulness to dynastic politics, a life of piety and seclusion, away from courtly intrigues. But Judith had no intention of fading into religious obscurity. Instead, she made a daring and highly controversial choice, one that shocked both her royal family and the Frankish nobility. Around 862, Judith met Baldwin, a relatively low-ranking Flemish nobleman with no major titles or land holdings at the time. Despite the vast difference in their status, she, the daughter of King Charles the Bald and a Carolingian princess, he, a warrior of modest birth, they fell in love. Rather than seek her father's permission, Judith and Baldwin eloped. Their unauthorized union was a direct challenge to royal authority, and Charles the Bald was furious. He saw Baldwin as unworthy of his daughter and responded by having the couple excommunicated by the church, a powerful act that threatened their legal standing and social legitimacy. But Judith once again proved her resilience. Rather than submit, she and Baldwin sought help from the Pope. In a remarkable turn of events, Pope Nicholas I sided with them, lifting the excommunication and urging King Charles to accept the marriage. Reluctantly, Charles the Bald relented, and Baldwin was granted lands in Flanders, marking the beginning of a new political reality. From that moment forward, Judith and Baldwin became the founding figures of what would later be known as the County of Flanders. Baldwin earned the nickname Iron Arm for his military strength and leadership, and the couple laid the groundwork for a powerful lineage that would shape European politics for centuries. Judith's elopement was more than a romantic gesture. It was a bold assertion of agency at a time when women, especially royal women, were expected to be pawns in dynastic alliances. By choosing love over duty and forging a new path outside the rigid expectations of her era, Judith of Flanders once again proved herself a woman ahead of her time, determined, intelligent, and unafraid to take control of her destiny. A royal scandal, Judith and Baldwin's bold defiance. Judith of Flanders, daughter of King Charles the Bald and a granddaughter of Charlemagne, had already lived a life marked by extraordinary events before she reached adulthood. Twice widowed by age 17, Judith refused the path expected of a royal woman in her position, retirement to a convent and quiet submission to her father's wishes. Instead, she chose a fate that would scandalize the Carolingian court and redefine her legacy. While back in Francia, Judith met Baldwin, a rising but comparatively minor nobleman from the Flemish region. Though far beneath her in social rank, Baldwin was bold, resourceful, and reportedly captivated by Judith's intelligence and courage. The feeling was mutual. With her royal status and his ambition, they formed not just a romantic union, but a political alliance. However, they had little chance of receiving the blessing of her father, who had far grander plans for his daughter. So, they did the unthinkable. They eloped. Their secret marriage caused an uproar. King Charles the Bald was enraged at what he saw as a disgraceful defiance of royal authority. He declared the union invalid and demanded that it be annulled immediately. Worse still, he sought the support of the church to delegitimize the marriage. For a royal daughter to marry without her father's consent, and to a man of lower rank, was not only scandalous, it threatened the hierarchical fabric of Carolingian power. Faced with potential excommunication and social ruin, Judith and Baldwin fled. But rather than retreat in shame, they took their case to the highest authority they could find, the Pope. In Rome, the couple pleaded with Pope Nicholas I to recognize their union. The Pope, known for his strong and sometimes defiant stance against secular interference in church matters, listened. He ruled in their favor, validating the marriage and admonishing King Charles for attempting to meddle with the sacrament. The Pope's decision was a major victory for the couple, not just spiritually, but politically. Under pressure from Rome, and faced with growing support for Baldwin in the Flemish territories, Charles the Bald was forced to relent. He recognized their marriage and, in a striking reversal, granted Baldwin lands along the northern frontier of his kingdom. These lands would become the foundation of the County of Flanders, with Baldwin as its first margrave, later known as Baldwin I, Iron Arm. Judith's daring escape and unwavering resolve helped not only forge a powerful dynasty but also reshaped the boundaries of royal female agency in medieval Europe. In 862, Charles the Bald was forced to accept Judith and Baldwin's marriage, although begrudgingly. He officially reinstated them at court, recognizing their union and granting Baldwin control of the March of Flanders, a strategically important territory on the northern frontier. This region, once a politically insignificant backwater, would soon become a cornerstone of medieval European power. Baldwin, known for his military prowess and nickname Iron Arm, quickly proved his worth. He successfully defended Flanders from external threats, particularly Viking raids, solidifying his authority and establishing the region's military strength. Baldwin's leadership transformed Flanders into a more cohesive and resilient entity, capable of withstanding the pressures from neighboring kingdoms. Judith, with her deep understanding of court politics and her experience navigating the complexities of royal diplomacy, played a key role in shaping Flanders' cultural and political identity. She brought with her the prestige of the Carolingian dynasty, and her influence was evident in the region's growing religious and cultural significance. Judith's patronage of monasteries and her support for ecclesiastical reforms helped cement Flanders as a stronghold of Christian piety, further legitimizing Baldwin's rule. Together, they fostered a court that mirrored the intellectual and artistic achievements of the Carolingian Empire. Their reign marked the beginning of Flanders' rise as an independent and influential region in medieval Europe. By securing political alliances and promoting religious patronage, Judith and Baldwin helped establish Flanders as a formidable force, paving the way for its future prominence. Through their union, Judith not only ensured the survival and growth of the Flemish region but also created a legacy that would reverberate through European history. The March of Flanders, with its growing power and influence, would play a crucial role in the political landscape of medieval Europe, and Judith's contributions helped ensure that Flanders became a significant player in the centuries to come. Judith's marriage to Baldwin not only elevated his status, but also played a pivotal role in shaping the future of Flanders. One of her most significant contributions was the introduction of Carolingian models of governance and religious patronage to the region. Drawing from her extensive experience at the Frankish court, Judith brought with her a wealth of political knowledge that influenced Flanders' development. She encouraged reforms and practices rooted in the Carolingian Empire, which helped strengthen the administrative and religious institutions in Flanders. Her support for the church and monasteries, inspired by her mother's devout example, also played a crucial role in establishing Flanders as a culturally rich and politically stable region. Judith's patronage of religious institutions ensured the alignment of Flanders with Christian ideals and reinforced Baldwin's legitimacy as a ruler. She helped cultivate a strong relationship between the Flemish nobility and the church, providing a foundation for future political alliances. Beyond governance and religion, Judith's marriage to Baldwin solidified the legitimacy of his rule. As the daughter of a Carolingian emperor, her royal lineage brought immediate prestige to Baldwin's reign, lending him the support of both local and foreign powers. Their children, born into this union, inherited not only land and influence, but also royal blood, securing their position in the European aristocracy. This ensured that the legacy of the Carolingian dynasty would continue through the Flemish ruling house. Judith's influence was instrumental in establishing Flanders as a key player in the medieval political landscape. Her marriage to Baldwin and her active involvement in the region's governance helped shape Flanders into a politically significant and culturally vibrant entity. This legacy would be carried forward by their descendants, ensuring that Flanders remained an important power in Europe for generations to come. Judith passed away around 879, leaving behind a legacy of land, lineage, and influence. Through her marriage to Baldwin, she not only helped establish the House of Flanders, but also laid the foundation for one of medieval Europe's most prominent dynasties. Her children inherited significant lands and power, ensuring that her legacy would endure for generations. As the mother of powerful heirs, Judith became an ancestor to some of the most influential families in European history, including the Normans, Angevins, and Plantagenets. Her descendants played key roles in shaping the course of European politics. Judith's bloodline connected to the royal houses of England, with notable figures such as Matilda of Flanders, the wife of William the Conqueror, and their children, who would go on to become kings and queens of England. This connection to the English monarchy highlights Judith's lasting impact on the political and dynastic landscapes of Europe. Though Judith's death passed without the grandeur associated with her earlier life, her influence on European history remained profound. Through her strategic marriages, her patronage of religion and culture, and her ability to navigate the complex political world of her time, she secured a place in history as a foundational figure in the development of Flanders. Her legacy continued through the power and prestige of her descendants, who would carry forward the achievements and alliances forged during her lifetime, making her a key figure in the dynastic history of medieval Europe. Judith's legacy is a testament to her defiance and political skill, reshaping the role of medieval noblewomen. Her actions defied societal expectations, demonstrating that women in powerful positions could actively influence politics and make their own choices. Judith's decision to marry against her father's wishes, her elevation to queen status, and her eventual escape and marriage to Baldwin Iron Arm broke traditional molds for women of her time. By navigating complex political landscapes and leveraging her royal lineage, Judith not only solidified her own status, but also laid the groundwork for the future success of Flanders. Her marriage to Baldwin legitimized his rule and strengthened the region's political and cultural identity, leaving a lasting mark on the history of Flanders. Furthermore, Judith's descendants carried her legacy forward, making her an important ancestor in English royal history. Through her bloodline, she became an ancestor of powerful dynasties, including the Normans, Angevins, and Plantagenets. Her lineage played a crucial role in shaping the English monarchy, with notable figures like Matilda of Flanders, who became the wife of William the Conqueror. Judith's life and legacy proved that medieval women, even within a patriarchal system, could wield influence, challenge norms, and leave an indelible impact on European history. Through her bold actions and strategic decisions, she reshaped what was possible for women in positions of power and set a precedent for future generations.